Welcome back, everybody. Once again, that's right. Season 5, the season of encounters. This week, joining us for the first time, our special guest investigator, Mr. Christian Cullen, coming to us from around the Louisville, Kentucky area with Bigfoot encounters, sightings, and stories, and all those good things coming up right here on the Squatcher Sounds podcast. Brand new Quasi Theory with Dean Cooper and Camping Tips for Stupids, Kevin Moore, and another top 5 from Cameron Young. Let's get it on. I'm the host of this mess, the Reverend Jeff Kelly, and I say thanks a lot for joining me here for the Squatchers Lounge podcast, season of encounters. That's right, 5 seasons of this stuff already, and there's going to be a whole lot more. Like I said during the introduction, this guy over here, that's Chris Cullen, and he said, I want to do stories from Kentucky, and I said, Dag, you're it. So we got a date together, which is tonight, and we are going to talk about Kentucky. So hi, everybody there. Say hello, everybody there, Chris.
How's it going, y'all?
How's it doing?
Dreams do come true. You can be on a show with Reverend Jeff.
That's right. Everybody's welcome to come hang out with the Reverend at least one night this season. So just contact me if you want to have a night in your area, and we'll definitely get it done. Okay, a little bit of news tonight. There's just a couple of things we're going to get along since we do have a special guest investigator. The SLP506.com, that's right. San Francisco is having a Bigfoot conference, apparently. Calling all believers Bigfoot Bonanza Conference and Film Festival coming to San Francisco. March 10th through the 12th, 2017, Bigfoot Bonanza assembled by the strange and unusual film purveyors of the Super Shangri-La Show will hold the event over 3 days. The scheduled events include screenings of cult classic films, television shows, as well as live presentations by a few prominent Bigfoot researchers like Cliff Barackman, who appeared on Animal Planet on his quest to find the fuzzy monster, author Kathy Strain, and Livermore-based Tom Yamarone. The self-proclaimed Bob Dylan of Bigfoot songs will not most likely be attending. Unfortunately, just the other night, Tom had a stroke. Tom Yams, the Yamarone, unfortunately, he wasn't feeling well, went into the hospital, and he did. Unfortunately, is going to be recovering from a stroke, but he is with us, and we give him good karma. So if you were looking forward to seeing him there during that time frame, it's probably maybe going to not be anything. Many of the Bigfoot conferences lately have been serious back-to-back speakers, wrote organizer, Super Shangri-La host, and in an email to FSK. They'll have more fun old movies, tacos, and beer, so hopefully Bigfoot researchers who attend can all cut loose. And the old Reverend here is planning on getting down there himself, so if you're going to be in the San Francisco area from March 10th to the 12th, take a look at the article and get yourself some tickets and go. And the other thing I want to talk about tonight was this picture here. Old James Bobo Fay, God bless him, posts up. I promise you, this is a legit photo that shows up on the therm as a mammal taken last week in Idaho.
Where's his legs? That's what I'm asking. I see it's a blob squatch, but it's like it's floating in midair in this point of view. It's like
what it actually is the ass end of a moose. And if you actually go in through the comments here, the very earlier comments, now there's 866 of them, which nobody ever actually seen. There's a picture of it laying down in the field when they drove down around the corner. So the light colored pieces at the bottom are where the legs are, and the big top part is the ass end of the moose, and it's walking away from the camera.
I can say it kind of looks like either maybe it's almost like a gorilla. You see its legs where it gets browner there. It looks almost like a gorilla possibly on stilts, either that or maybe the whole whoosh washed into the field and they float. I mean, who knows?
It's very, very strange looking for sure. But old Bobo, he apologizes. He's like, the comment up above here, well, sorry about that false alarm. Apparently almost no one saw the second picture from down the road of it being a moose. I should have been more clear by legit, I mean not a Photoshop or an intentional hoax. I never specifically said it was a squatch, just that it was a 7-foot mammal in an undoctored photo. I wanted people to go through and try and figure out what it was. Also to show how easy as honest misidentification can be. So, there you have it. That was a moose, people. It was not a Bigfoot. Bobo did not post a real Bigfoot on his page. He even admitted it himself. So sorry for you. Wow. that, it's actually time once again already to talk about our quasi theory of the week. I know old Dean, he's been waiting for it, boy. He's had it. Where's my picture now? I can't even find my picture of my quasi man anymore. Oh, it's just been one of those week, people. I have been so sick that I don't even know what day it is, to tell you the truth. Oh, yes, I do. It's Wednesday. And the only reason I know that's because we're on the air. There we go. Now I finally found what I was looking for. So I've actually probably paused long enough. Let's see here. Hey, we can get it today. Yay. And there you have it, folks. A little bit of quasi theories from a quasi scientist, Mr. Dean Cooper. And now, quasi theories from a quasi scientist with your host, Dean Cooper.
'Tis the season to be sneezing. I have a cold, a rather annoying cold. My wife gave it to me. She got it when she went to the doctor's office. It's been a week since it started on me. It's the first I've had in several years, despite my wife trying to give me hers a couple of times a year. Here's where I do the required quote from Wikipedia. They usually resolve in 7 to 10 days, but some can last for up to 3 weeks. The average duration of coughing is 18 days, and in some cases, people develop a post-viral cough which can linger after the infection is gone. I had to modify that quote a bit because the author apparently didn't understand common English usage. Great. They might as well have said, you'll feel like crap for a couple, 3 weeks, get used to it. The most annoying thing about a cold, to me anyways, is when you sneeze or cough and somebody says, God bless you. If you believe that God will somehow cure someone because you declared that God should bless you, aren't you trying to countermand God's will? Didn't God give that cold to that special someone to begin with? Isn't everything God's will? And which God? I find it difficult to believe that the presumed creator of the heavens, earth, and hell, well, hell, let's throw in all the possible other universes and alternate timelines and subdimensions and all things quantum. Where was I? Damn sneezing attack made me lose my train of thought. I edited out of the audio. No need to splatter my audience with it. Bad enough it splooshed my monitor and keyboard. Oh, yeah, God. That's where I was. Okay, so if you insist that God cure someone's cold and you want God to then cure that cold, aren't you basically trying to order God around? Sounds like you're treading on dangerous grounds there, my friend. Time for some Our Fathers, Hail Marys, Hare Krishnas, and maybe throw in an Om Namah Shivaya or two. What if you're a pantheist with a whole pantheon of gods? Which god or goddess is the god or goddess of the common cold? What do you offer that god or goddess as a sacrifice to bribe him or her into curing a cold? Burnt Kleenex? Light up a lamp filled with high-octane, high-alcohol content cough syrup? Gallons of orange juice spiked with vitamin C? No, best leave God and or gods out of it. Goddesses too. You could say, like the Germans, Gesundheit, which literally means be in a state of wellness. But that's essentially an order, and we all know what happens when Germans start issuing orders. Now I gotta go blow my nose and hawk up a lung. You may read the text of this on my blog at bydean.com. That's BHAIDIN.com.
Gesundheit. That's right. Gesundheit. Oh my God, that's right. We know what happens when Germans start to give orders.
God. It's horrible.
Thanks a lot there, dear Deanster. We appreciate that, pal. You're going to let me unshare that probably. All right. And next up, hey, yeah, that's right. We had a camping tips for stupids. That's the next thing up, and it's actually on deck, so I don't have to go searching for it. Ha. Thank you.
Camping tips for stupids. Tip number 30. Navigation. For thousands of years, there have been a select few who led the way. A select few who pointed in a direction and said, "That way, y'all." And the ones that came back lived on to breed this magical gift of pointing, and that way, y'all, to the world. Then some jackass invented tools that did the job for us, and did it way better. So, a select few got jobs and stopped pointing. Thanks, assholes. Thanks a lot. But whoever named the sextant, you're all right. Navigation on the trail isn't a lightly taken thing by the hardcore camper. GPSs, compasses, sextants are all important gear in your arsenal to keep mega bitch Mother Nature from luring you off the trail and killing you. So remember to pack good quality gear in this area of gear. You really don't want to go cheap when it comes to safety. This has been Camping Tips for Stupids. That way, y'all.
That way, y'all.
Don't forget to spay and neuter the idiot population.
That's right. Thank you so much there, Jevin. That is definitely one way to do it. Finally, we're down to it, people. That's right. Cameron's top 5 this week. Cameron's top 5 ways Bigfoot will be discovered, at least according to Cameron Young. That's right. Number 5, someone actually gets an HD photograph or HD video or film. That's probably the least likely way the Bigfoot would be discovered, and I probably would agree with that. It's just that there's not enough cameras out there in the forest where these things live to actually be taking pictures of them. Oh, there's so many game cams out there. They cover this much of the forest. This much. That's all they cover. They don't cover anything. Trust me. They cover one meadow. They cover one game trail. They cover one tree. They don't cover crap. All right. Anyhow, number 4. Number 4. DNA. That's right. Somebody will actually get a provable piece of DNA. That's the 4th way, possibly, the Bigfoot would be number 4 way. Number three, someone brings in a good piece of a body. That's right. Hack that hand off, hack the head off, take a big old chunk of something that's identifiable with you if you can't take the whole thing in, because Lord knows we need to prove that it's out there. Number 2, a logging semi-truck finally hits one of those big bastards and kills it. The big bastards edition was mine, not his. That's right. You know, there are a lot of logging people up in the areas that these things live in, and the logging people won't really talk about it. They don't want to talk about it. They've been told not to talk about it. They've been told not to look into it. It maybe be the case. I don't really know. And the number 1 way that Bigfoot will be discovered, according to Cameron Young, will be shot and killed by a Sasquatch hunter, i.e. him. That's right. He's willing to take one and put one on the body on a table for science. I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to help out do that. I don't want to see a whole bunch of them slaughtered for science, but I think we're definitely 1 or 2 of them we could get it done. So that is Cameron Young's top 5 ways Bigfoot will be discovered. Top 5 list of the week. Thanks a lot, Cameron. We appreciate it, buddy. That was awesome. So I know, seems like we're rushing through it, but that's because we got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about in Kentucky. So let's give the shout outs here to people that are hanging out in the lounge tonight because they've been around tonight. There, of course, our quasi-theorist, the moderator, Mr. Dean Cooper. And Collier Wilmus is also hanging out there. He's got a wrench. Hakta Peter. That's right. How you doing there, buddy? I didn't pronounce the B. I'm pretty sure that's silent. Starshine. She's hiding out with us tonight. Hi, my name's Forrest Crab. People call me Forrest Crab. He's not actually hanging tonight. He had to go and run, but we give him a little shout out anyhow because he did check in the chat room with us. Let's see here who else is hanging. Mr. Third Baseman Curt Harris. How you doing, buddy? Glad you are hanging with us tonight. This is going to be a fun night. I promise you, we had a pre-show the other night, and I was just dumbfounded. Look at that, Mr. Rod Dupree and the place to be. How you doing, buddy? The Life and Times of JCM. That's right. Our Camping Tips for Stupid genius, Mr. Jevin Moore, the Jesus Christ of Monterey Bay. I'm not sure that he likes that, but he's kind of stuck with it now. And then, of course, Mr. Cameron Young. That's right. Our top 5 guy. He's hanging out with us. James the Grower is in the house as well. The Squatch Box. I'm not sure who that is. I'm pretty sure they're new. How you doing there, Squatch Box? Sam Squanch Rivera. He's hanging out with us tonight as well. Let's see here. Duo Du Erden. Hey, how you doing? I'm dyslexic and I still said that right. Who else is out there? We're getting down to the bottom of it. If you haven't said hi, I'm a effing problem. Well, don't be an effing problem. Be a solution. That's how that works. Glad you could join us tonight as well. Believe you're new. Let's see here. There's got to be somebody at the bottom of this mess that hasn't said hi yet. Well, there's Scotchbox says hi right back. All right, people. Well, that looks like it's the end of it. I'm so glad you guys are joining us live. There's a bunch more people watching than chatting, and that's how it works. If you want your night here on the Squatchers Lounge podcast featuring the area that you go out and investigate, catch me on Facebook. Send us a message at facebook.com/SLoungePodcast. Catch me on Facebook. Just send me a personal invite. Send it to SLoungePodcast@gmail.com. Send it to me a message on YouTube. There's a billion ways to get a hold of me if you want your night right here on the Squatchers Lounge podcast. And you know whose night it is? Tonight, it's Chris Cullinan's night. That's whose night it is. And we're talking Louisville, Kentucky area. Let's get to it, my man.
There we go. That's where I'm from.
That's
yeah,
it.
anybody who's watching this right now, I mean, it's easier than you think getting on this. I decided to message Swatchers on the podcast one day, albeit stupidly we're driving down the highway, and lo and behold, 10 minutes later, it's like, oh, hey, how you doing? I'm thinking, the fuck, he just messaged me. It's like, it's the biggest surprise of my life, but then I realized I should probably pay attention to the road. But yeah, I did, and now I'm here today. But we're here in
and here we are.
Really? It's, despite what some people think, it's actually pretty swatchy. Let me get some. I don't know why this is being stupid right now. It's the. Come on. Well, where is this? Not trying to delay the podcast.
No, we're all good. We're all good. What are you the green box to share?
Oh,
are you looking for the screen share again?
No, it's not the screen share, although I should be screen sharing right now. Am I screen sharing?
No.
Oh, I'm not?
No.
Share. Okay, there we go. There we go. Now we're on then. All right.
Now we are.
I have no clue why this is being so stupid. Okay, here we go. Now, in Kentucky, this is the BFR overlay, but I mean, there's actually a lot more sightings than this. And unfortunately, the BFRO is compared to the Kentucky Bigfoot website, which is more local based in and around this area of Southern Indiana and Louisville, has better sightings. But overall, there are a couple really good sightings, including one that the old Rev put on his the monsters info, the Popelet monster that haunts the Popelet trestle over here in eastern Kentucky. And that's one side of it, I guess. But really, many of these major spots, and go back here to the Kentucky reports, and there's areas as new as 2016 where Nicholas County, crying baby Bigfoot, and let's find one in Jefferson County, because that's where Louisville is. Aha. So Scottsdale Bigfoot, this was an incident in the Jefferson Memorial Forest, which is really one of, like, the city brags it's one of the biggest urban forests in the nation, and really, it's pretty close to downtown. Like, this area, there's walking trails in it. I mean, deer, coyotes live in this area, but there's even a overlook that looks into downtown, and you can see pretty much all the valley in this area. But there was...
Well, you know, one of my theories of this too is the fact that we're dealing with relic populations who were here before us. All of this grew up around the Bigfoot. And if they live to be 70, 80 years old and they breed until they're 40 or 50 years old, it could take 200 or 300 years for them to actually even breed themselves out of being completely encapsulated by urban sway.
And I mean, they don't have to stay here, though. I mean, that's the thing, is that even in Kentucky, this is, again, BFR overlay. There's one there from 2001 in Bullitt County, which is south of Louisville. And there's all this forest down here that's just south of Louisville, and it's pretty good because much of this area is reserved as part of Fort Knox, which gets down into, I forget if this is no, it's in Trimble County. What county is this? I don't even know my own. Hardin County. Here we go. Hardin County, Kentucky, is that you have all this green space. This is the Jefferson Memorial Forest on the outskirts of Louisville. Then you have a bunch of this area, which is around Fort Knox and the tank artillery range that they have around there. And over here, And there's a relevant story actually about not Bigfoot, but another big modern American mammal that lives here now, which is Bernheim Forest, which I used to go to a scout camp down here at. But this area could really support an actual small, I don't know how much of a relic species it would be, of Bigfoot, because of there's not too much settlement, and the settlement that is there is just mostly farms, either former tobacco farms and some of them just crop farms. You don't see as many of the typical bluegrass horse farms out here south of Louisville as you do east between Louisville and Lexington down this way. But really, I remember this one big one. Let me get my backtrack again. And this was just, I study urban planning and architecture in college right now, but I'm also pretty wise in how I've learned about how my city grew. But this whole area along the Ohio River, which is on the far southwest side of the city, which is now it's mostly industry. They have a bunch of different, I think they have a sand company and limestone quarry down here, but some houses and some lower income housing and industry. But this Class B siding was back during the 70s, albeit a while ago, when this was more wooded area like it is further south. And along this creek used to be just a normal canal that would run along the Ohio River parallel to it as a sort of floodplain, because Louisville's had some bad floods in the history of its founding, and they're not really pretty. So from what this one was, and I'll go to it, is this was, come on, Strange Sounds Heard over the Course of the Summer. And it was a kid who was living in these neighborhoods around here in the Pleasure Ridge Park neighborhood of Louisville. And they keep going over, and they keep hearing in the summertime when he was sitting down on the couch, he would howling sounds that apparently to him, when interviewed later, sounded similar to the Ohio howls that Matt Manymucker recorded back in 1996. And they kept coming from what's now this concrete ditch, but used to be just a wooded area and still kind of is, way back then in the 70s. Albeit, again, they've developed this area and a big road goes through it now. But I've thought, and even I've talked to Charlie Raymond, who's a local Bigfoot investigator in Louisville and is becoming a little bit more well known in the community. But he even thinks is that there was any Bigfoot that lived in the area along the river got pushed out more into the forest, Memorial Forest, and down here as the city grew and expanded. And then they've either become trapped here, or just like they realize, okay, they're not going to move in here, we can stay in here and live. But another really big sighting that, and it wasn't too big, but it was notable that happened, is it was in Scotts Gap in Jefferson Memorial Forest. And it was of a woman and her daughter. It says they were hiking. My mom and I like to hike through Jefferson Memorial and Scotts Gap in our favorite location. One afternoon, as they're coming back, blah, 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 the mother sat on the table and smoked a cigarette. And she was looking in the woods, and she saw something stand up on two legs, walking almost like an ape through the woods. And she realized it wasn't a bear, because bears don't walk like that, and it looked apish. It looked like a hominid or some form of ape. It didn't look like, oh, it's just a big. I mean, again, that's how I don't even get sometimes how people would say, oh, maybe these Bigfoot signs are bears walking on two legs. The way a Bigfoot is supposed to walk is more like a human and more like a bear, is swinging their arms. Bears, even that video in New Jersey, the bear that walked on its hind legs, his front legs were screwed up, it wasn't walking like a Sasquatch does.
Well, see, everybody looks at Patty and says that her arms look weird, but me, Patty's legs are weird because they're long. Apes aren't supposed to have legs like that. Like gorillas have those little stubby short legs, and chimps have those little stubby short legs, and orangutan have those little short stubby legs. You know, that's the Sasquatch that I saw in the description of most people, where they have legs like a man, long like a man. That makes it weird.
It's weird, but I mean, if obviously Sasquatch is bipedal, I can see how it would be longer, because again, the whole reason why gorillas and chimps can't walk on two legs for that long is because they have such long pelvic bones, and it's just not easy for walking. It's more like hobbling than steady walking like a human or any other bipedal animal, pretty much just humans, hominids. But this area, this is right in here, and it's pretty squatchy. I mean, one big thing, and sorry for saying I mean all the time, this is what I do, but a lot of what Kentucky has is we have fields because of tobacco farming and horse farming over the years, But one thing Kentucky is notable for, other than its bluegrass fields, all the haulers down here. And even the whole bullshit show, Monster, what was it? The Mountain Monsters on Destination America, no matter how bullshit that was, they did make one true claim that could make sense for Sasquatch, in that they walked through haulers. And that's because even when you have these giant fields down here, you have these elevated plains, almost ridges, where creeks come down that all somehow feed into the Ohio River and eventually the Mississippi River that they can hide in and they could possibly live in. And one other theory I've thought about it, at least for possibly in this area by the Memorial Forests, or also further east in the eastern part of Louisville, which I'll get to later, is that I think it's Matt Moneymaker, I think, said it on Finding Bigfoot or something one time, but it was that Sasquatch seemed to use not telephone poles, the giant power lines. So essentially they say, they use the power lines to walk up and down, which makes sense because it's a giant clearing and they go over a lot of area. But at the same time, I don't really see. Well, I do see how they could possibly use rail lines also.
Right. Well, that's the thing is any wide berthing of a free swath of movement through the woods is going to get used by the animals. I mean, deer run down train tracks, bear move down train tracks, raccoons move down. Almost any animal that's moving from one location to another location is going to use a giant highway that's been cut for them, right down through the middle of the woods. Why wouldn't a Sasquatch do the same thing?
He says creeks. Matt Mike says creeks too. But again, I have some knowledge of rail lines. This is albeit a major rail line that heads south of Louisville to Nashville, but it goes through this forested area. It keeps heading south through Shelby County and Bullitt County, Kentucky, that goes into more forested areas near Bernheim Forest. And I'll actually get to that. I'll have to find the article again, but it's very interesting in that it was, let's see here. It was,
when it comes down to the Kentucky area, and I've done a lot of Bigfooting in the eastern side of the state, up where it meets where Knoxville comes in and meets into like Gatlinburg and along the Appalachian Mountains up in that area. Well, the Blue Ridge, the Smokies, whatever you want to call it, depending on the locality of it. But it's all supposedly, it runs right through the same mountain chain.
I mean, this area over here is a lot like the Pacific Northwest in that it's rainy a lot of the year. It's really mountainous, and pretty much the animals are the same for the most part in eastern Kentucky too. You have elk in Kentucky now. The state's been doing relocation, and actually they now have elk lottery hunts in Kentucky too because the population's been booming so much in the former coal fields down here. They have black bear down here now. They've moved back in again. They have just deer and just Daniel Boone National Forest. This is very squatchy area. So I mean, that's definitely pretty much like the Pacific Northwest in that it's not really inhabited that much, and there's all these animals available for food.
And most of Kentucky was like that not 100 years ago.
Yeah,
you got to remember. Kentucky before the Civil War, literally was the Hatfields and the McCoys. That was the entire state. Louisville was not a giant city with industrial plazas in 1865. Okay,
well,
it was a considerable city, but it wasn't as urban sprawled out as it is now. We've grown in the last 100 years into every area that we can that's basically habitable by humans.
In the 1860s, Louisville was pretty much confined to just the West End downtown and what's Portland down here in the immediate downtown area. This was either small towns, which are just central neighborhoods now, or just forest.
Right.
It was all forest back here. And
100 years ago, there could have been 10,000 Bigfoot living directly in Kentucky, and no one would have friggin' known it. Can't do away with that today, though. Those kind of numbers, you have to wonder.
It depends on what part of Louisville is. This is down in the south and west end of Louisville. It's more populated, but even just to the east of downtown, I have a grandfather that lives along the waterfront down here. Not exactly on the waterfront, but in these hills over here, like Mockingbird Valley, as you see here, Indian Hills. Am I still sharing my screen? Can you see this?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, I don't want to make sure it turns off again. But up in here, I think I'll have to look at it again, but like Louisville is one of the top cities in the nation in terms of like white-tailed deer living per square mile. My grandfather has a house up here in Indian Hills. I mean, once you get down to River Road here, you can see downtown. It's not far at all. In fact, I think a couple of years ago, they had an instance where a deer got into downtown and ran in front of one of the judicial buildings downtown. They had to tranquilize it and take it back out because somehow it wandered in there. I have no clue how. But this is only about a mile from downtown, and you'll go to my grandpa's house. I'll be there swimming in his pool. I'll be playing with my sister or my cousins. I go down into water and like die for a second. I come back up, look in his backyard. There's like 10 deer staring back at me. I'm like, oh shit. So I mean, they're everywhere around here. I mean, if you live in the eastern part of the city, especially in the fall, unfortunately, see a lot of dead ones. But they're absolutely everywhere. So I mean, and that's a pretty big deer. They live in all throughout here. So in terms of a food source, you're not having a squash living in here, but on the outer parts of the city and further out in the state, you're going to have some food for it. And one more big point I want to make, though, again, is what would make sense for having Sasquatch in this area is that, and it happened just recently, but it's interesting, is that I have it up here on the can you see my website right now?
Mm-hmm.
It was this past summer, and occasionally what you'll have is like fledgling black bears, like yearlings. They get kicked out by the mothers, usually males. They get kicked out of their home range in East Kentucky, and they wander far ranges trying to find new places to live, new mates, and just new territories. So, and occasionally we've had ones where I think one year one came to Bardstown, like 30 miles south of Louisville, and some in southern Indiana, but it's never like they're staying here. Well, this one now, they have a bear that's living inside Bernheim Forest, which is a privately owned, publicly funded forest right here, near where that Boy Scout camp is, and only about 20-ish miles south of Louisville. And they have a black bear living there now. And this is still a relatively urban area, but I mean, it's a yearling bear still, but they have a black bear, and they said it's bedded down inside the park. So you having a black bear you having bears are starting to move back this close to Kentucky, Louisville, this part of the state where it's more open and more populated. That shows that, I mean, the Sasquatch could live here. And again, I think an ape, some form of primal ape, a possible distant ancestor of us hominids, some distant hominid, I think, would be smart enough to stay here and move around easier than a bear would. So, I mean, that could just show that they can live here.
Well, that becomes the question, because when we had Dean on, we talked about Chicago and you know, the urban side of Chicago, and whether that there were Sasquatch, there was sightings there in the 70s, and again, in modern times, how far out do you actually have to get before you get back into sighting encounters? I mean, how far from Louisville does it take before you get into the wild of Kentucky?
Yeah. Again? That's what's kind of like, you kind of have to know the topography of the area, or you're from the area, is that really is, and you can see from this map here, they have up in Indiana, these are the Floyd Knobs. I actually have, my roommate lives up in here, but there's a little bit of forest area up in here, so there is places for it, but for the most part, the best, most squashy area you'll get where they could possibly live would be down here south of the city in the Jeffersonville Forest that connects into all the forests around Fort Knox and that Bernheim Forest area, and eventually down towards some of the big recreational lakes that are down here. And also more like to the northeast of the city in Oldham and Henry County, where there's still a lot of fields, but it's mostly farms and not that inhabited. In fact, I was talking with Jeff earlier about this, and that there are actually a decent amount of ports in Henry County, Kentucky. And you can see them here. There's a lot of farms. There's a lot of, even my grandmother's house out here. There's a number of farms coming out here. It's not completely forested, but there are, as you can see here, a lot of these haulers that, believe it or not,
and that's where the stories come from. The stories come from back in the hollers where things go bump in the night, and them old hillbillies are living. They ain't got no teeth and like the butt fuck old Ned Beatty in the ass. Oh wait, no, that was Tennessee. I'm sorry.
It's even worse as my grandfather's friends with Ted Beatty or Ned Beatty. I'm sorry.
I can't. So hard to see Ned Beatty as a badass after watching Deliverance. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing is that's where the stories come from. Is they're around these urban areas, but they hang out in these hollers, and it wouldn't be hard to disappear into those things. I mean, if anybody, it doesn't look like it's that big, but once you get there, it's 10,000 acres.
It's bigger than you think. It's
That
not.
holler is 10,000 acres. Where do you start? 10,000 acres.
It's not Pacific Northwest, but it's pretty big. This one was one I think I was talking about yesterday, Jeff, in that it was 1964. My grandmother lives on Hillsborough Road in Henry County, which I'll get this back up on Google Maps. She still has a property down there. It's right down here, actually, her property. And yes, I'm going to show it to people because they're moving anyways, unfortunately. But again, there's a lot of farmland around here, but even back on their property, they have all this area back here. There's 2 fields they don't really use. There's a creek that runs back here. There's loads of deer, turkeys, coyotes, I think some bobcats, you name it. And even near her house, just right up this road, which is Hillsborough Road, have been sightings, although the 1964 one I showed here was from back in, 1964. And that was obviously back, let me guess, my dad just turned 54 yesterday, and that was a year. Well, that would have been when he was a year old. So that's definitely old. But there have been reports as recent as 2013, even when the Finding Bigfoot team came to Kentucky and interviewed one of the ladies who had a report near Smithfield down here. Where is this? Here it is. I don't know the exact location of her sighting, but she had an incident 2013 where she was on her. Actually, this might be. Is that it? No, I don't know. But she was on her property somewhere down here, just enjoying her night. Her dog was going batshit crazy, but she got him to calm down. All of a sudden, she looks up into like this high window that isn't like the arching windows that almost like sun roofs, but on the side of a house. That she was looking up there. It was probably 7-8 feet off the ground. She sees 2 giant eyes glowing at her, and she's like, "Oh shit!" And she goes up to her bathroom and looks out, and there's this giant Sasquatch peering at her from the bush, like it ran away, and it was harassing her. And that was going back to 2013, and she had some other issues from that. And that's, I think from there to my grandmother's house, as the crow flies, is probably like 3 miles. So I mean, it's pretty close, and they're still going on. In fact, that night investigation they did, which actually, to be completely honest, for Finding Bigfoot, it actually seemed pretty legit. The one they did where they heard those weird howls. I don't know what did that, and they didn't sound like coyote howls either. Did you watch?
I did. Yeah,
it was in Kentucky. It sounded like a Bigfoot howl. It didn't sound like any sort of coyote howl, unless it's some form of special effects. I don't see that being fake, just because it sounded, and it was down here again. It was in Trimble County up here. These were all the haulers where this happened. They were in one of those haulers when they heard those crazy ass sounds. So I mean, there's actually a couple reports in Trimble County I looked up. But go on ahead, and if you're gonna say something, Rev.
Yeah, no, we're good. I was just gonna say, if you were gonna take 5 minutes to wrap up what you wanted people to know about your area of investigation, with the Sasquatch, let's take 5 minutes and wrap it up for the Louisville, Kentucky area. I think tonight, and I think we've got some really good information out of it. I'm always skeptical when people say, "Well, I've seen them around Louisville." I'm like, "But Louisville's a big ass city." But the more we look at it, and that's why we do these types of things. We look into these encounters, and we do realize that 30 years changes a lot of things. Yeah,
it's nowadays, like I said, the Scotts Gap thing, this is a really keen area now. I know Charlie Raymond and the Kentucky Bigfoot team have been looking into this a lot more and doing research around here, because people in Bullitt County and Hardin County keep seeing these creatures on their farms walking around. And even Fort Knox has a couple of reports, I believe, because again, in all this, even though this is Fort Knox, I believe they own technically the government owns private land all the way around here for military exercises. So that's protected land that no hunters can get into for deer. No hunters can get into, say, let's go find a Sam Squanch. No hunters can get in there. So I think I've heard of ones either, I don't know if you mentioned them on your channel or other channels, of military people, soldiers and personnel on military bases seeing Bigfoot, because again, it's closed area. Nobody's going to go in there unless.
I had it around the naval air base, around a naval bombing run in Florida for 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's going to try to trespass in the military area, because A, they don't want to go to federal prison, or B, they don't want to get blown to smithereens by a tank or an explosive that's out there. So, I mean, that's area for a Bigfoot to be in. But if I really say one more thing about the area, and I'll say this, is that Henry County and Trimble County up here are good, but one of the last good places that might have Sasquatch for a little bit longer, but as the city kind of grows outward as the years come on, is down here in eastern Louisville and western Shelby and Spencer County is where Reverend Jeff did the fabled tale on the Poplick Monster. And actually, it was an interesting, I'll get this back up on the Kentucky Bigfoot website, is that, here is it. Here we go. Poplick Monster. Let me catch on my thoughts. Charlie Raymond with the Kentucky Bigfoot organization actually thinks that the quote-unquote Poplick Monster Goatman sightings might actually be a Bigfoot, because while they describe, half man, half beast, hairy legs and everything, some maybe say, it has horns, but not for sure. But he thinks some of those might be Bigfoot just because of the behavior of it. They say when you see it, it starts screaming at you, starts hollering, trying to stare you off the trestle. Voice mimicry, I don't really know. I bet all the roost watchers will tell you, that's a Bigfoot. But I don't know. But howling, throwing rocks, throwing crap, trying to stare the shit out of you sounds like a Sasquatch trying to protect this area, because this area around the trestle, the only way it's really changed in the past, I'd say, 30 to 40 years, is that at least a bit north of it, actually where my old high school was, it's gotten up here some more neighborhoods. But now, just recently, they completed a park system that's called the Parklands of Floyd's Fork that runs the length of from down here all the way up to protect some of this land before it gets developed. And it's still some wild area. They got coyotes, deer. I've seen a bobcat or two around occasionally. I mean, to be honest, I was mainly the place my friends and I used to go smoke when we were in high school. But he thinks that might have been a Bigfoot, but also it could also have been one, because there was a sign back in the 1980s in the creek over here that this is Floyd's Fork, a branch of it. I don't remember where exactly the turn was, but there was an old distillery, an old bourbon distillery, Kentucky famous for its bourbon, that they're going up to go drink at, and something started screaming at them, throwing rocks, just typical Sasquatch behavior, and they're like, oh shit, let's get out of here. And that happened in the 80s. So I don't think they're around the trestle anymore, hence no more Goatman tales.
Right.
I do think, actually, there was a report, I forgot what the date was. I think it might have been 2015, down near, not too far over here. Where's Taylorsville? It's down here, Taylorsville Lake. Here we go. Taylorsville Lake area. And that's not too far from, maybe 10 miles from the trestle, still in Spencer County down here. And this is a lake in a big area. It's recreation, but it's not as developed as some other places. And their family was camping out, and they said they kept hearing these whooping noises. And the dude, the person who reported this, is actually a researcher. I don't know if he's BFRO exactly or what, but he said, yeah, I was scared. He looked down to some little ravine and saw a Bigfoot crouching over a deer carcass, and then went down the next morning, and actually Charlie Raymond came the next morning, and they saw that the deer carcass was eaten, but again, not the typical chewing marks you'd see from maybe a fox or a coyote or even a bobcat, but it was the marks of, again, like a breakage, like how a primate or a human would break a bone, or possibly tooth marks like a tooth, not so much or a tooth like a primate tooth or a human tooth, not so much the exact canines and grinding of big cats or canines. Exactly. So that's a big area that would be around there.
Well, that's awesome, dude. Let's go ahead and get this wrapped up for the night, man. That's a whole lot of information that goes on around an urban Sasquatch that I just didn't know about myself. That is for absolutely sure really great, Chris. I want to thank you very much for joining me tonight, because it sounds like there's more that we could probably go through. And as I was saying before the show, there's going to be more nights where we have special guest investigators in as well. So we want to thank everybody out there for joining us tonight here on the Squatchers Lounge podcast. Next week, again, we'll be zooming in and checking out somewhere else. And I think next week we're going to go into Pennsylvania, and I'm going to show you where I had my Sasquatch encounter myself. So Allegheny County, Pennsylvania will be up next on the Squatchers Lounge podcast for next week. If you guys want to hang out in an after hangout here with the Reverend Chris, I'll post the link up here in just a couple of minutes. Thanks everybody for watching. Chris, can you say it?
And may the Squatch be with you, homies. Let's go.
There you go. Thank you, sir. Oh.
Whew. Yeah, I have a lot of confusion.
Dude.
I still know some more and it's kind of just rambling because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, all this crap.
We'll come back and visit it another night.
Oh yeah,
That's the beauty of having a show.
definitely. One cool thing I also want to mention too is awesome is that I have a lake house now down in Hardin County. My family just built, so I'm hoping please have there be a Sasquatch down there. Searching for the summer when we have a lake house. That'd be so awesome. But
Tracks, man.
hopefully,
Find Bigfoot. We'll see you next week, guys.
See ya.
Bye.